Practicing Liberation. Transformative Strategies for Collective Healing and Systems Change. Reflections on Burnout, Trauma, and Building Communities of Care and Social Justice Work. Edited by Tessa Hicks Peterson and Hala. With contributions from Jacoby Ballard, Leslie Booker, Taj James, Kerri Kelly, Sará King, Nkem Ndefo, Keely Wynn, Dahlia Paris Saper, Claudia Vanessa Reyes, Valerie Thomas, Therese Julia Uy, and Davion Zai Zaire. Foreword by Kazu Haga. Narrated by Henriette Zoutomou. Published by North Atlantic Books. This book is dedicated to those we are most intimately accountable to. Our beloved blood and chosen families, our ancestors, known and unknown, and our future descendants. It is also dedicated to the many young people, elders, community organizers, artists, healers, colleagues, comrades, and collaborators we have been blessed to work with in our communities. We are grateful to all those who have generously shared their wisdom and practices of liberation with us, and to those who have asked us to pay it forward. This is for you, and you, and you. Foreword by Kazu Haga. When I first began to get involved in the work of social change, I took words like peace and justice for granted. Like most people, I simply thought justice meant correcting society's ills, and peace meant harmony. And they do. But at the same time, it's not that simple. Shallow understanding of complex ideas like peace and justice also leads to a shallow understanding of how change is made. I believe that if enough people marched, blockaded intersections, and chanted loudly, then change would happen, and we would achieve peace and justice. So I marched. I blockaded intersections, and I chanted until my throat was sore. And despite seeing some incremental changes take place, I did not witness the depth of transformation I felt was so necessary. And then I met Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, I didn't really meet him, but I studied his teachings for the first time. 10 years into my career as an activist, I began to finally understand the real Dr. King, the radical, love-fueled, anti-capitalist revolutionary that society had hid from me in plain sight. And then finally, I began to understand. I began to understand that my idea of peace had been diluted by our society's propensity for what Dr. King called negative peace, a cheap veil of quiet and calm that comes at the expense of justice. He taught me that real peace, positive peace, is not merely the absence of some negative force, war, tensions, confusion, but it is the presence of some positive force, justice, goodwill, the power of the kingdom of God. After my years of chanting, no justice, no peace, Dr. King finally taught me what those words truly meant. Without fighting for justice in an unjust world, we will never have real, lasting, positive peace. I realized that the work of peacemaking is a loud, messy, and chaotic process. I realized that we cannot be afraid to disturb negative peace, complacency, and business as usual. But I also learned that this loud, fierce energy needs to be grounded in love. Audre Lorde taught us that the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. Violence is the tool of the master. Overpowering people and enforcing its will is how the empire creates change. And those changes have led to trauma, injustice, and separation. If our goal is healing, positive peace, and reconciliation, we must find a different way to create change. We cannot force justice and enforce peace. We cannot shove healing down someone's throat. I realize that, even in many of our social justice movements, we are grounded in a worldview of separation and leading from a place of anger and resentment. Like many activists, I have been trying to use our actions to harness power and overpower the other side. It was not that different from how the institutions I was going up against make change. I learned that, more than anything, a commitment to building the beloved community that Dr. King and so many others before us fought for meant a commitment to always centering healing and reconciliation. That our goals had to be much more than legislative. They had to be about relationships. So I began teaching nonviolence, trying to infuse our movements with the lessons I learned from Dr. King. At the same time, I began working with incarcerated people, helping to empower the voices of those who had been most directly impacted by violence. But after some time, I saw that even this work was only scratching the surface. I realized that even as I was encouraging activists to not see people as the enemy, there were people in my life whom I had not been able to forgive. I realized that as I was helping incarcerated people heal through the violence they had experienced, I was failing to look at my own shadows. I realized that my healing work was focused out there. And I realized that my capacity to lead with love and to hold spaces for healing was limited by my own lack of healing. My understanding of interdependence would always be an intellectual one, as long as there were fractures within my own body and in my own life. I realized that I can only lead with love to the extent that I am healed. I can only work to remind us of our interdependence to the extent that I am whole. My study of Dr. King's work taught me what it meant to chant, "No justice, no peace." But my practice of Dr. King's teachings made me ask myself what it means to know justice, to know peace, not just as an intellectual exercise, but to live them as an embodied practice. From my vantage point, my personal journey seems to have run parallel to the collective journey of many changemakers. When I first started to get involved in social change work, there was no talk of healing, embodiment, or interdependence. We didn't sing. We didn't have rituals. We didn't talk about trauma. But over the years, these words began to appear more and more in our movement's vernacular. We began to sing again. We organized rituals. We began to understand how trauma impacts everything we do. And we began to understand more and more that our ability to heal society's ills is directly tied to our own healing. Right now, our movements are grappling with how to make these lessons real. How do we embody the change we want to see? Being invited by this anthology's editors to participate in their No Justice, No Peace, a transformation and justice community collective, could not have come at a better time. As global movements strive to embody the essence of peace and justice and delve deeper into the profound relationship between healing and justice, their collective work and this resulting anthology emerge as an indispensable tool for activists, healers, faith leaders, social workers, and educators alike. The lessons that follow in these pages are an example of embodiment, written by practitioners on the front lines, organizers, activists, healers, educators, and faith leaders. Every chapter radiates the lessons garnered from hard-fought campaigns, struggles alongside the most marginalized communities, and wisdom gleaned from deep spiritual practice. Being an anthology fortifies this work against the pitfall of a single narrative. Within its pages, the vast diversity of the writers and their experiences serves as a powerful reminder of the necessity of a movement ecosystem as diverse as a lush rainforest. In one chapter, you will delve into the core principles of how trauma impacts both individuals and movements, underscoring the importance of bringing in healing practices. The next chapter will drop you off right onto the front lines of organizing, where a poignant personal account will shed light on the history and limitations of trauma-informed care. One chapter will present a tangible illustration of a new cutting-edge organizational approach, while another will deliver a contemporary adaptation of a 2,500-year-old wisdom tradition, making it applicable to today's organizing world. One chapter will offer valuable insights on how to engage in accountability practices that are healing in our movement spaces, while others will vividly depict the depth of our socialization and the pervasive
Sample complete. Ready to continue?